Hi, I'm Zeb Davenport, Vice President for Student Affairs here at Westchester University. And today we're going to talk about completing the educational mission of Westchester University from the Division of Student Affairs perspective. The university's strategic priorities and the division's strategic priorities match up and complement each other pretty well. We were intentional about doing that. So on the university side, you will see learning, personal, professional development. There's a priority for diversity and inclusion, community engagement, and sustainability. And from the division's perspective, you will see sustainability, engagement and experiential learning, social justice, inclusion and diversity, health, wellness and safety, and student development. Together, we all contribute to student success. The vision of the Division of Student Affairs is to be nationally respected among public universities for our achievement in inclusivity while creating transformative experiences for every student that inspires lifelong discovery and positive action. Our mission? Simply to be educators who design and facilitate high-quality co-curricular experiences to develop students' personal, professional, and intellectual talents while preparing them to learn, lead, and serve. Our values are simple: accountability, collaboration, holistic student development, learning, and social justice. It is too simplistic to think that the curriculum is the realm for learning and the co-curriculum is the realm for personal development. It is a symbiotic process that has to be integrated. So we understand that learning happens both in and outside of the classroom. Basically, our approach to learning here at Westchester, particularly in the Division of Student Affairs, is that we are partners with our colleagues in academic affairs, whereby the classroom provides formal learning and the out-of-class experience provides the formative learning. And when we bring the two together, we create these holistic experiences for our students, thus completing the educational mission of the university. From a student affairs perspective, we believe that we contribute to the academy in 4 ways. And those are, we first identified a common set of learning domains. We then anchored those domains in what we call institutional pillars, career readiness models, and industry standards. Then we have to be intentional about learning. So we grounded all of our programs and services in theory and in leadership models, and we created a common set of learning objectives, and then we measure the desired learning using assessment. We have 7 learning domains, and they are civic engagement, communication, critical thinking, integrative learning, intercultural fluency, personal development, and problem solving. So that people understand that we have been intentional about what we want students to learn, as I said before, we have our 7 learning domains and we've grounded them into institutional pillars, which is the President's Toolkit and the Gen Ed Learning Outcomes. We looked at industry standards, and you can see on your screen, we've used the industry standards, the CAS standards, and we've used AAC and U, Essential Learning, and the last anchor is NACE, the National Association for Colleges and Employers. A lot of times when people think about student affairs, you think about it, they think about balloon animals and pizza parties or recess and the principal's office. Principal's office is the conduct office, in case you didn't get it. That's a joke. I hope you're laughing. Anyway, what we have done here in the division is we've connected our learning domains to a meta-analytic research process conducted by Dr. Stephen Robbins. In his work, he identified 3 determinants to academic success. And basically what he's done, he's defined academic success by retention and performance. And the first determinant is self-regulatory control. He defined that as a student's ability to manage their emotions, their attitudes, and their behaviors. The second determinant is motivational control. And he defined that as a person's ability to respond to prescribed behaviors. For example, in a classroom, the professor would give a student the syllabus. The professor doesn't expect to have to come back and say, make sure you study for your test because it's in 2 weeks. Make sure you read your paper and do your homework because you're going to have something due. They give the student the syllabus and they expect the student to respond to that prescribed behavior. And then social control. And he defined that as a student's ability to be able to manage formal and informal social networks. So for example, the formal networking, interacting with faculty and staff in an appropriate way. Informally, you're talking about maybe living in a residence hall or on their own in their apartments. And if they cannot manage those particular settings, they will not be retained. If a student can't communicate and work in groups in a formal setting, or if they're out all night hanging out with their friends and not sleeping and not resting, they will not be retained. So what we did is we took Dr. Robbins' definitions of his determinants and we looked at our definitions of our learning domains and we matched them up by the definition. So if you look on the screen, you will see that we took self-regulatory control, and by definition, it relates to communication skills, critical thinking, and professional development. And when we looked at the definition for motivational control, they seem to match up with our definitions for the learning domains that are integrative learning, personal development, communication skills. And then the last determinant was social control. And again, when we look at our definition and Dr. Robbins' definition, we were able to match problem solving, intercultural fluency, and civic engagement. Now, you can clearly see that student affairs is not about balloon animals and pizza parties. We actually impact student success because there's a relationship between the determinant and our learning domains. And the way that we can measure the impact on student success is through our assessment of learning, for which we want students to obtain when they participate in or engage in our programs and services that relate to each of those determinants. The other thing that's important to know is that we have grounded our major programs, or we've actually tied them back to 30 theories, 30 guiding theories and leadership models. So you can look at the screen and you'll see we have folks like Aston, and I know you should know these names, but Aston, we have Chickering, we've used Gilligan, there's Maslow, Perkins, Perry, Schlossberg. I can go on and on and on. And some of our leadership models, we look at positive psychology models, we looked at the 6 dimensions of wellness, even strength quests and student retention models to guide or ground our major programs and services. We've actually taken our 7 learning domains, which are civic engagement, communication, critical thinking, integrative learning, intercultural fluency, personal development, and problem solving, and we translated those into learning rubrics. If you look on the left side of your screen, you will see dimensions of learning: identity development, self-advocacy, relationship, leadership, and so forth. As you move across the grid, you will see that we have milestones, 1, 2, 3, and a capstone. And sometimes you will see us refer to them as also as benchmarks. But in each of those categories, we actually expect students to either, in the first one, remember and understand what they've experienced, and the second 2, which would be milestone 2 and 3, we're looking for students to be able to apply and analyze what they've learned. And in the capstone, we expect students to be able to evaluate and in some cases, create programs for their peers. Now, it's very simple. And again, I'm going to refer you to the screen. In student affairs here at Westchester, we believe that we are educators who promote learning in those 7 learning domains. Again, I'm going to repeat that for you: civic engagement, communication, critical thinking, integrative learning, intercultural fluency, personal development, and problem solving. And we've taken all of our programs and services and we've categorized them into the 5 focus areas that you see on the right. Now, when we talk about creating pathways to success, As I said earlier, the classroom provides the formal education, and the outer classroom experience provides the formative education, and together we complete the educational mission of the university. So in this last piece, I'm going to provide for you a comparison between academic affairs and student affairs, and then I'll run down the list and talk about how we do what we do. When we embrace the role of educators here at Westchester, you can see the comparison between what happens in academic affairs and what happens in student affairs. They have academic majors, we have a co-curricular focus. We both use program reviews. The advising sheet and the educational plans match up. Academic affairs have catalogs, and student affairs has a co-curricular catalog. They have courses, we have programs. We both use theory and outcomes to guide our work. We both research and assess the impact of the work that we do. They have a curriculum review group, and we have a co-curricular review group. They have academic transcripts, and we have a co-curricular transcript. So to further illustrate the comparison and collaboration between academic affairs and student affairs, as you can see on your screen, academic affairs has 5 certificates: global awareness, digital literacy, sustainability, community engagement, and social justice. As it relates to student affairs, again, I want to draw your attention back to the 5 themes, which are career readiness, social justice, community engagement, leadership and involvement, and health and wellness. And if you take those 5 themes, one of the things that we are proud about here at Westchester is we have created a co-curricular transcript. And so we've utilized those 5 themes, and by using dimensions of learning and benchmarks, we've been able to create experiences for students that will allow them to engage in a co-curricular activity or program or service, and if they follow those benchmarks across the continuum, they will receive a co-curricular transcript. So look at your screen and I'll give you an example of how this works. So a benchmark 1, or a beginning opportunity for a student, as I said before, we want students to remember and understand their experience. So I'm going to use community engagement as the example. So at the bottom of the first block, you will see Adopt a Block. That's what we call an entry-level program. What we really want students to do is to remember and understand the types of experiences that they can get involved in. If you take it to the second block, Milestone 1 and 2, or Benchmark 1 and 2, and that experience using the community engagement would be voter registration. We want students to be able to apply and analyze their experience. So practice, review, and discuss the importance of voter registration on a community. What are the impacts of voter registration? We want students to, again, apply and analyze. The third area would be the capstone. That is where we want students to evaluate and or create experiences for their peers. So they might engage in an alternative break program and they co-lead that with a faculty, but then also create experiences for their peers to be able to respond and be able to articulate what they've learned in that opportunity. Then we take the undergraduate certificate, the co-curricular theme, the co-curricular transcript, and the academic transcript. When they all come together, that's how we create pathways to success for our students. So finally, and bringing it all together, in student affairs, we create these experiential learning opportunities. And there are a number of opportunities for students to engage in, whether it be the Saxby's Experiential Learning Cafe, whether it be leadership programs in athletics, or opportunities for students to manage a building, student directors, whether they lead clubs or organizations, the residence advisors, orientation leaders. The important part, though, is that we have to be able to translate and capture the learning during and after college and help students to be able to talk about what they've learned in the class and once they've graduated. So we assess and measure learning. We help students articulate and transfer the learning in appropriate settings. And we provide students with a co-curricular transcript so that they can illustrate what they've learned, how they've learned it, and use that as they go along after college. So when we put it all together, folks, we are educators and we provide meaningful experiences for our students that will allow them to be successful both during college and after they graduate. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Well, if there are, ask the screen because I'm out of here. Rams up.